Welcome to JK Tells a Story, where real-life dramas unfold. Sit back and enjoy today's tale. If your wife left the house at 10 p.m., would you be worried? I wouldn't be, because I just need to turn on the local news to see her. My wife, Rachel Whitmore, co-hosts the nightly news on a top TV station in Dallas. She's both smart and beautiful, and many believe her next job could be at a network like NBC or ABC, or in an even bigger market like Chicago or New York. There's even talk of a network offer, the ultimate goal for news anchors. I'm Jake Morrison, and Rachel kept her maiden name for broadcasting, as many female announcers do to separate their personal and professional lives. You can see how proud and lucky I am to be her husband. We met at the University of Texas at Austin. She majored in broadcasting and I studied marketing. We met at a freshman year fraternity party, and I was instantly smitten. She was tall, blonde, and stunning. I was outgoing but not an athlete or model material. Despite this, we hit it off and became a couple. We had our ups and downs, even breaking up for 2 weeks. I missed her so much I ran to her dorm, only to find her running toward me. It was a movie-like moment, and we promised never to part again. We were madly in love. By senior year, we were engaged and living together off campus, but we waited until after graduation to marry. She wanted a big wedding and her family could afford it. We married in the university chapel a week after graduation. Rachel got a weekend weather anchor job in San Antonio. Not prestigious, but a start. I got an entry-level position at a local advertising agency, gaining experience. Rachel's career quickly took off. Within a year, she was offered a reporter position at the largest station in Houston. We moved to Houston on the Gulf Coast, where I found a job at a big ad firm. Rachel thrived, becoming a weekend newscaster and eventually the nightly news co-host. Her pregnancy announcement boosted her popularity even more, and our daughter Emma's birth became a local event. The station produced a documentary series on Rachel's experience as a new mother returning to work, winning a regional Emmy. Her success led to a co-host offer from Dallas's top station, KDFW. We left our beloved Houston for Dallas, knowing it could lead to even bigger opportunities. The Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, with its 7 million population and significant media market, was a major step up for Rachel's career. I was cautious about moving to Dallas after being so comfortable in Houston, but it turned out I had no reason to worry. Thanks to recommendations from my friends in Houston and help from the Dallas station, I found a great job at the city's second-largest advertising agency. The station's management was fantastic, connecting us with a knowledgeable real estate agent who found us a wonderful house in Plano and a great daycare for little Emma. The move was smoother than I expected, and we settled into our new life quickly. Our daily routine is quite different because being married to a television journalist is unique. I wake up, make breakfast, and go to work, leaving Rachel and Emma to sleep. Rachel gets up with Emma and spends the morning with her. After lunch, she takes Emma to Mrs. Henderson, a sweet woman who runs a small preschool for Emma and a few other children, preparing them for kindergarten. I pick Emma up after work, cook dinner, and bathe her before reading to her and putting her to bed. Then I relax until Rachel comes home, often waking me up on the couch. Rachel's schedule is demanding. She arrives at the station at 3 p.m. to prepare for the evening news, goes on air at 6 p.m., and again at 10 p.m. lately. The news director Ryan Foster has been holding post-mortem meetings after the late newscast, making her stay even later. The competition for ratings is fierce, and stations constantly seek to increase their audience share. As an advertising professional, I understand the focus on ratings, but as a husband, I miss time alone with Rachel. We both work long hours and often feel more like neighbors than spouses. Although we try to spend weekends together, it's challenging, especially with Rachel's increasing public appearances. Our schedules rarely align, making it difficult to discuss our situation, and Rachel seems reluctant to talk about it because there are no easy answers. When we married, we discussed these challenges and I agreed to everything. Moreover, many of our friends face similar issues with demanding jobs. I try to be supportive because I knew what I was getting into, and Rachel's income significantly eases our life, even though money isn't everything. Eventually, I couldn't keep my frustration to myself. One day at lunch, I confided in Brandon Walsh, the media director at our agency. Brandon, married with a daughter slightly older than Emma, became my best friend at work. When he talked about how happy he was with his family, I blurted out, "Damn, I wish I had what you have." "Looks like trouble in paradise, buddy," Brandon said. "What's going on?" I poured my heart out, surprising myself with how bad I felt. "I'm married to one of the best women on TV," I grumbled. "But I see her as often as her fans do." Brandon shook his head sympathetically. "That sucks, Jake. Can't you take a vacation or a long weekend? Your folks would love to keep Emma." "I thought about it," I said. "But Rachel says Ryan Foster is pushing them to keep ratings up. He's afraid their absence will cause a drop they can't recover from." "Look," Brandon replied, "I know Ryan Foster. He's ambitious but also decent. Maybe you should talk to him and see if he can help you and Rachel get some time together." "I don't know, Brandon," I sighed. "Rachel would kill me if she found out I talked to her boss." "She doesn't need to know," Brandon said. "Ryan's coming to the agency tomorrow for a presentation. You can catch him afterward." "I don't want to mix personal issues with work," I said. "Don't be silly. It's just a preliminary meeting. This is a great chance to talk to him." That evening, Rachel arrived even later than usual. She didn't wake me from the couch where I had dozed off. I woke up in the middle of the night, dragged myself to bed next to her, and thought, now we won't even get to kiss her goodnight. Determined to change our pattern, I kept an eye on the conference room the next day. As their meeting ended, I waved at Ryan. He was in a good mood. "Hey Jake, how's my favorite news anchor's husband?" he shouted. "Hey, Ryan, do you have a couple of minutes?" I asked. "Sure, what's on your mind?" he asked cheerfully. "I need you to give Rachel a break. You're working her too hard," I said, frowning. He looked concerned. "Did she complain?" "No, she likes it," I replied. "I'm the one who suffers. I don't see her anymore." He relaxed and joked. "You knew she had a demanding job when you married her." "True," I agreed. "But all these appearances and post-show meetings cut into our time together." Okay, he said. "We've probably overdone it. I'll see if we can lighten her schedule. And don't worry about the postmortems. We haven't had one since the last ratings came out. Have you seen how much we're outranking the competition? Management is thrilled. I've got to get to my next meeting. Keep pleasing your bride." With that, he patted my back and left. Back at my desk, I checked the ratings and saw the last set was published a month ago. If Ryan hadn't held a postmortem in a month, what was Rachel doing when she came home so late? The thought shook me. I wondered if she was having an affair but quickly dismissed it. Rachel loved me and wouldn't jeopardize our marriage. There were plenty of reasons she could be late, catching up on fan mail or unwinding, but those reasons didn't make me feel any better. At that moment, Brandon poked his head in. "Hey, I saw you talking to Ryan. Did he give you any relief?" "I'm not sure, Brandon," I said. "I guess I won't know until I talk to Rachel." He looked puzzled, but when I didn't say more, he turned to leave. "Okay, buddy. Let me know if there's anything I can do." The rest of the day, I was like a zombie. I went through the motions, but my mind was elsewhere. I kept thinking about what Ryan had said and what Rachel had told me about her late hours. I considered confronting her, but worried I'd look foolish if the explanation was innocent. Accusing her of an affair wouldn't help our relationship, yet avoiding the issue felt weak. By the time I left work to pick up Emma, I hadn't solved anything. Thankfully, my 4-year-old's demands distracted me for the evening. She was unusually clingy, sensing my mood, and didn't want me to stop reading to her. When she finally fell asleep, I found tears welling up, thinking how sad it would be if her parents divorced. Emotionally drained, I watched TV but couldn't focus until the news came on. Watching Rachel, I remembered how much I loved her and convinced myself she wouldn't cheat. It was past midnight when Rachel arrived. "Oh, I didn't realize you were still up," she said, surprised. I hugged her. "I just wanted to see you. You're awfully late tonight." She kissed me quickly and took off her shoes. "Yeah, sorry. Ryan held us up again with one of his autopsies." She headed to bed. As she walked upstairs, I realized she lied. Ryan said he hadn't held a session in a month. I didn't want to believe she was cheating, but I also didn't want to ignore the truth. The next day, I asked Brandon to have lunch with me. He sensed my seriousness and agreed. We drove to a restaurant far from the office in silence. When we ordered, I hesitated. Then Brandon said, "It's Rachel, isn't it?" His words opened the floodgates, and I poured out my fears and insecurities. Brandon listened silently. "Damn, I thought you and Rachel had the happiest marriage," Brandon said. "Me too," I replied sadly. "So what are you going to do?" he asked. His question clarified my thoughts. "Brandon, I need to go to the station and see for myself. If I'm wrong and everything's innocent, I'll sneak out undetected. Rachel will never know." "What if you're right?" Brandon asked quietly. "I don't know, but at least I'll know the truth. It's better than this agony." "What about Emma?" he asked. "I've already thought of that," I told Brandon. "When we get back, I'll call Mrs. Henderson and ask if she can keep Emma late tonight. She's offered before, so it should be fine." We finished lunch and returned to the office. Though still distraught, I felt some relief having a plan. Even those facing execution feel some relief when the day finally arrives. Mrs. Henderson agreed but asked me to return by 11 p.m. "I have work in the morning," she said. It wasn't much time, but it was the best I could get, so I promised. After work, I informed Emma of the change. She cried at first but brightened when Mrs. Henderson mentioned a pizza party. I paid for the extra time in pizza, then left before Emma could get upset again. I went home, made dinner, but couldn't eat. Cleaning up, I tried to distract myself, but doubts grew. The news wouldn't end until 10:30 p.m. What if Rachel came straight home? What would I say? These fears paralyzed me until I remembered my resolve at lunch. I had to do something. By 10 p.m., I decided to go to the station. There wouldn't be many people there, an engineer, 2 cameramen, and a sound technician. Hopefully, I could go unnoticed. When I arrived, I realized my mistake. Joe, the night watchman, was there. He knew me, so getting in wasn't an issue, but I had to sign in. So much for stealth. "Good evening, Mr. Morrison," Joe said. "Here to see the news," I replied, signing the log. Joe looked at me sympathetically. "There won't be a problem, will there?" "No, of course not," I replied quickly, heading to the studio. What did he mean? Did he know something? I peeked through the blackout curtains. The news had just ended, and Rachel was heading toward the green room instead of her dressing room. The green room was dark, usually reserved for guests who never appear on the 10 o'clock news. As Rachel opened the door, a lamp inside revealed a male figure. The door closed, and I was left outside, heart pounding. I could burst in, but if it was innocent, Rachel would never forgive me. If I stayed outside, I'd never know. I remembered a small observation window Rachel had shown me once. I headed there, checking the time. It was already 10:45. I needed to leave soon to pick up Emma. I peered through the window and saw Rachel in an intimate embrace with a man. I recorded a brief video with my phone, my hands shaking. The scene was unmistakable. This wasn't a professional meeting. Seeing the time, I knew I had to leave. I ran to the lobby, nodded to Joe, and headed out the door. "I'm sorry, Mr. Morrison," Joe said. Damn, I thought. Does everyone but me know what's going on? I jumped into the car and sped to Mrs. Henderson's house. She let me in and I found Emma asleep. Wrapping her in a blanket, I picked her up and thanked Mrs. Henderson for keeping her. She looked at me oddly and asked, "Are you all right, Mr. Morrison?" Only then did I realize I had tears streaming down my cheeks. "Oh, it's nothing. Just got something in my eye," I said. I thanked her again, carried Emma to the car, and drove home. Emma stayed asleep as I carried her upstairs and put her to bed. She looked so sweet and innocent, and I longed for the innocence I had lost tonight. I got a beer from the fridge and sat in the dark, waiting. Everything was quiet, and a memory of my grandmother's passing flashed through my mind, the silence deepened by sadness. When Rachel got home around 1 a.m., she turned on the kitchen light and saw me sitting there. "Jake, what are you doing?" she asked, surprised. I've been waiting for you, I replied evenly. The security guard said you came by the studio. Is everything okay with Emma? Where is she? Mrs. Henderson kept her for me. She's asleep upstairs, I answered. Well, if you came to the studio, why didn't you stop by my office? She asked, her voice tinged with confusion. I steadied myself. This was it. I saw you tonight, I said. I saw you go into the green room with Derek Callahan. Oh, we just had a meeting after the news, she replied nonchalantly. Rachel, I looked through the observation window. I saw what your meeting was about. Her face went pale, then flushed red. You were spying on me? That's ridiculous, Jake. Whatever you think you saw. I saw enough, I interrupted. I know what's going on. She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her calculating. Finally, her shoulders sagged. Oh, Jake, I'm so sorry. Are you sorry you did it? Or just sorry you got caught? I demanded, my frustration growing. I'm sorry you found out this way, she said quietly, avoiding my gaze. You're leaving me for him, aren't you? I asked, feeling a lump form in my throat. She dropped to her knees and took my hands. No, honey, I'm not leaving you. This is just a fling. Maybe it'll be over soon, and things will go back to normal. Her words shocked me. You're not going to stop? You're going to keep cheating on me? It doesn't mean anything. Just let me have my fun, and I'll come back to you, she said, her tone dismissive. I can't believe this. You expect me to agree to be a betrayed man? I shouted, unable to contain my anger. She stood up and looked at me coldly. Jake, you really don't have a say. I'm your husband. If you don't stop, I'll file for divorce, I threatened, hoping to make her realize the gravity of the situation. She looked at me with a cold, calculating expression. I don't think that's in your best interest, Jake. You'll lose custody of Emma and most of our assets. The court won't care about the affair. They'll prioritize Emma's welfare, and I'll get custody. You'll only see her on weekends and some holidays. Wait, you're the one committing infidelity, I protested, feeling the situation slip further out of my control. This is a no-fault state, Jake. The court won't care. Ask a lawyer if you don't believe me, she said with a finality that chilled me. I don't want this to happen, Jake. I want our family to stay together. This fling shouldn't concern us. Just think about it. She kissed my head before heading to bed. I sat there, overwhelmed by anger, loss, sadness, and confusion. That Rachel would cheat on me was unthinkable, and that she would suggest continuing the affair was beyond comprehension. Finally, I dragged myself to bed and fell asleep almost immediately, exhausted by the night's events. Even though I was exhausted, I woke up at 6 o'clock the next morning. I showered, shaved, and dressed mechanically. Wild thoughts ran through my mind. Run away, shake Rachel awake, kidnap Emma, or never get out of bed again. But looking at Emma asleep, I knew I had to stay strong for her. Doing something stupid would only cause me to lose her. I had to put her first. So I did my morning chores and headed to the office, working on autopilot. Jake, Brandon said, "Are you okay?" When I didn't answer, he came in and closed the door. "What's wrong?" he asked. I told him everything about last night. Brandon listened, shocked by Rachel's attitude. "Damn it," he said. "She expects you to put up with her cheating?" He looked me in the eye. "Rachel has changed. You can't rely on her anymore. You need to look out for yourself. The first thing you should do is consult an attorney. You need to find out your rights." "I don't know any lawyers in Dallas," I replied. "That's where I can help," he said with a smile. "My college roommate is a lawyer here. I'll call him." A moment later, he returned with a piece of paper. "You have an appointment at 1 p.m. today. Here's his name and address." "Thanks, Brandon. At least it gives me something to do," I said gratefully. "No problem. After you meet him, come back and tell me what he said," he instructed. The meeting with the lawyer was disheartening. He listened to my story and then explained, "In a no-fault state, the court doesn't care who did what. It only decides on the division of property and child welfare." "What does that mean for me?" I asked, In short, Rachel will get custody unless she's unfit. You'll get visitation rights, but Emma will live with her. You'll pay child support even though Rachel makes more money, he said matter-of-factly. And the house? I asked, hoping for a glimmer of good news. It's joint property, but the court prefers children to stay in the house. Rachel will likely keep it until Emma turns 18. Then you can sell it and divide the equity, he explained. But what if she moves to another market? I objected. Then you can sell the house. Until then, it stays put, he clarified. I shook my head, feeling defeated. Damn it. She knew exactly what she was talking about. I'm screwed. I'm sorry, he said as we shook hands. It's not always fair, but that's the law. Driving back, I felt like I was being punished for a sin I didn't commit. Brandon saw my face and knew the outcome. Damn it, Brandon, I said. It's just not fair. She put me in this situation, and there's nothing I can do. I have to put up with it to keep my daughter and my home. I paced around the office. Now I understand why some men lose it. Don't even joke about that, Jake, Brandon said quickly. I know you're angry, but if anything happens to her, I don't want to testify that you made threats. Okay, I get it, I agreed. I wouldn't do anything like that. It just feels like she's an albatross around my neck. I glanced out the window and groaned. A new billboard showed Rachel and Derek Callahan with the caption Dallas's choice for the 6 o'clock news. See, I said to Brandon, pointing at it. I can't escape her even here. Brandon looked at the sign and then had an idea. How desperate are you to get out of this mess? He asked. Not desperate enough for violence, I said firmly. No, not that. But I have an idea, he said. What if we could expose her? Make her own words destroy her career. What do you mean? I asked. Listen, Brandon leaned forward. You said she's planning to go away with Derek next week, right? What if we record her admitting everything? Her attitude, her plans, her contempt for her fans. If we can get her to say it all on camera, we can create a video that shows Dallas exactly who she really is. How would we even do that? I asked, my mind racing. Hidden cameras. In your house. You confront her before she leaves. Get her to talk. I'll edit it together with footage from the station, make it look like a news expose. Once it goes viral, the station will have no choice but to fire her. Public outrage will do what the courts won't. I stared at him. That's insane. And probably illegal. It's Texas, one-party consent for recording. As long as you're part of the conversation, it's legal, Brandon said. Look, I'm not saying it's risk-free, but think about it. If this works, you get custody, you keep your house, and Rachel faces consequences for once. We talked for another hour, with me repeatedly saying it was crazy and wouldn't work. Brandon kept asking, how much worse off would you be? Eventually, I realized I was stuck and needed to try something. Okay, Brandon, I'm in, I said finally. The next day, Brandon came over with a small bag. Wireless cameras, he explained, pulling out tiny devices. Battery-powered, motion-activated. I'll put one in the living room, one in the den. They sync to your home computer. He worked quickly, placing one camera inside a bookshelf behind some books, another on top of the entertainment center disguised among the DVD cases. He showed me how to access the footage on my computer. When you confront her Friday, make sure you're in these rooms, Brandon said. The cameras will do the rest. I left the office feeling determined but filled with doubt. Could I risk losing my daughter for this plan? Maybe it was better to live as a betrayed man. As I picked up Emma and made dinner, I kept thinking. I turned off the TV, unable to watch Rachel and Derek on the news. Surprisingly, Rachel came home early. She put Emma to bed, and I heard them laughing and reading stories. Felt like old times. When Rachel came downstairs, I thanked her. She misses you, especially at bedtime. I know, she said softly. And I missed her too. I wondered if she was reconsidering her choices, but my hopes were dashed quickly. I'm taking a vacation next week, she said. Ryan suggested it because our ratings are so high. I'll check with my boss tomorrow to join you. I said, trying to sound enthusiastic. No, Jake. Derek and I are going away alone. We're tired of sneaking around and want to enjoy each other without worries. I was stunned. She continued, Mrs. Henderson will keep Emma all week. You just need to drop her off and pick her up. Here's where I'll be if you need to contact me. She handed me a paper. We'll be back on Sunday, and things will go back to normal. She kissed me on the head like a child and said, Thanks for taking care of everything, honey. Then went to bed. Oh my God, I thought, this is the most humiliating experience of my life. I was shaking with anger and knew I had to regain my dignity. Brandon's crazy plan seemed like the best option. I left work early on Friday to see Rachel before she left with Derek Callahan. I arranged for Mrs. Henderson to keep Emma overnight, ensuring she wouldn't witness any arguments. I checked Rachel's closet and saw her suitcases, so I knew she'd come home to pack. Before she arrived, I went to my computer and activated the hidden cameras, making sure they were recording. My hands trembled as I started the system. This was it, no turning back now. When her car pulled in, I waited in the living room, positioning myself where the camera would capture everything. What are you doing here? She asked. Is Emma okay? She's fine, I said. She's at Mrs. Henderson's. Then why are you here? I wanted to convince you not to go away with Derek this week, I told her. She put her hands on her hips. I've told you. I'm having my affair with Derek. When we get back, it will be over and everything will go back to normal. You just have to be patient. But what about our wedding vows? Pleaded. What about forsaking all others? Those vows were from another time. No one believes that nonsense anymore, Rachel said, irritated. But this is infidelity. I don't want you to dishonor our marriage, I insisted. Jake, if I want to be with Derek, I will. This has nothing to do with you and me, she replied dismissively. But what about your fans? They won't approve, I argued. I don't care what they think. In a year, I'll leave this town for a real city. What people here think means nothing to me. Now stop pestering me. I have to pack or I'll be late. If you can't stand seeing me with Derek, leave now, she said coldly. I stood up, slumping my shoulders. I'm sorry, Rachel. I'm sorry for everything. I left and drove to the local tavern. I needed to relax. As I sipped my second beer, Brandon walked in. Hey, buddy, he greeted. How'd it go? I don't know, Brandon, I said, feeling defeated. You'll have to see for yourself. Not until I try what you did, he said with a determined look. We finished our beers, then drove back to my house. Rachel was gone. Brandon sat at my computer and, with a few keystrokes, brought up the footage. We watched as Rachel rejected my pleas and detailed her plans with Derek. What a piece of work, Brandon muttered. Then he saw her dismiss her fans and talk about leaving town. Brandon's face lit up. We got her. This is better than we hoped. He saved the recordings to a flash drive and removed the hidden cameras. Backup copy, he said, holding up the drive. We drove back to the tavern for Brandon's car. He insisted I follow him home for dinner. Nicole made a big dinner. If you don't show up, she'll be upset, he urged. I reluctantly followed him. When we arrived, Nicole hugged me and kissed my cheek. Whether it was friendship or pity, I appreciated it. I don't remember much of the dinner, just picking at my food while Brandon and Nicole exchanged concerned glances. Afterward, they led me to the den, and Brandon opened a bottle of wine. We drank until Nicole couldn't hold back any longer. I'm so angry and disappointed in Rachel. I don't know what to say. She always seems so sweet and loving. When did she turn into a selfish, unfaithful woman? Nicole exclaimed. Success has changed her. Now she thinks she can do anything. She turned sharply to Brandon. Look, do whatever you can to help Jake. I don't like taking sides in divorces, but this is different. Rachel is out of line, and we need to help Jake keep his daughter. She then gave Brandon a piercing stare. And if you get hit on by any of those models or TV personalities, you better say no, or I'll come after you with a butcher knife. Brandon and I laughed, but I wasn't sure if she was exaggerating to make a point. We talked and drank into the night until I collapsed on their couch. I vaguely remember Nicole covering me with a blanket and patting my arm. The next thing I knew, morning light was streaming through the window, and I had a horrible taste in my mouth. Brandon lent me a toothbrush and razor, and I tried to make myself presentable. Nicole had made a big breakfast, and I joined them at the table. My appetite was a little better, probably due to my survival instincts kicking in. After breakfast, Brandon took my hand. "Leave everything to me. I got a lot to do this weekend. Just pick up Emma and get out of here. I'll keep you posted," he said reassuringly. "Brandon, I don't know what I'd do without you," I said sincerely. I hugged him awkwardly and headed home. I had one more task I wasn't looking forward to. I found Derek and Lindsay Pierce's number in our address book. When I called, Lindsay answered. "Hi, Lindsay. This is Jake Morrison, Rachel's husband. Can I come over now to talk?" I asked. "Hi, Jake. Yes, come on over," she replied, sounding hesitant, probably wondering why I wanted to see her. As I drove to her house, I thought about what to say. Telling a woman her husband is cheating is never easy, and it was more awkward since I didn't know Lindsay well. But she needed to know. Lindsay went to the University of Texas with Rachel and me. She was in Rachel's sorority but was 2 years younger, so we didn't socialize much. I was surprised she married Derek, as she didn't seem his type. When I arrived, she greeted me and offered me a drink. "Just water with ice, please," I said, afraid my mouth would go dry. When she brought it, I took a sip and began. "Lindsay, do you know where Derek is?" "Of course," she said. "He's at a TV convention all week." "Why?" she inquired, a note of concern creeping into her voice. "Lindsay, I'm sorry to tell you this, but Derek isn't at a convention. He's with my wife, having an affair at a beach resort on the Gulf Coast," I revealed as gently as possible. Lindsay looked as if I'd slapped her. "That can't be," she protested. "I saw him off last night. He loves me. Rachel was like a sister to me. She wouldn't hurt me." Her voice trembled, and finally, she broke down. "Oh, Jake, are you sure?" she asked, tears welling in her eyes. I grimly showed her the video from the green room. As she watched, her eyes reddened, and she began to cry. I sat next to her, stroking her back. "I know, Lindsay. I know," I said softly, trying to comfort her. Eventually, she composed herself. "What are you going to do?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm going to file for divorce, but I need to make sure I don't lose Emma. It's better if you don't know the details, just in case." "You're not planning anything illegal, are you?" she asked, alarmed. "No, but if I succeed, both she and Derek will regret cheating," I said. I tried to smile to reassure her but probably failed. "What about you? Can you rebuild your marriage after this?" After learning how long this has been going on and how weak they've been together. "I can't stay with him," she said quietly. "Maybe you should use my lawyer unless you have someone else in mind," I suggested. She gave a weak smile. "I don't know any lawyers. If you use mine, it could save you money since he already has my evidence," I said. I handed her my lawyer's contact information. "Call him on Monday and let him know we're on the same page." She nodded and took the paper. "Lindsay, I need a huge favor," I said. "What is it?" she asked nervously. "Please don't tell anyone about this until you hear from me. It could cost me the chance to keep Emma." She looked at me solemnly and nodded. "I won't say a word, Jake. I promise." I thanked her and stood to leave. "What are you going to do now?" she asked. "I'm going to pick up my daughter and take her out of town until this settles down." She wished me luck, and I did the same. We're both going to need it, I thought. It was late afternoon when I left Lindsay's house. Rachel and Derek would be leaving for their beach vacation soon, and I needed to get Emma to safety before everything exploded. I drove to Mrs. Henderson's house. When I arrived, Emma met me at the door and jumped into my arms. "Did you have a good time, honey?" I asked. "Oh yes, Daddy. I had a sleepover, and we had pancakes for breakfast, and I played with dolls." I thanked Mrs. Henderson and reminded her Emma wouldn't be coming next week. She looked at me shrewdly and asked, "Is everything all right, Jake?" I hope so, I replied. She kissed Emma's cheek and said, "Take good care of her. She's like family to me. I'll be praying for you." "Thank you, Mrs. Henderson. It means a lot." I carried Emma to the car and buckled her in. When we got home, Emma asked, "Where's Mommy?" "Mom had to go on a trip, but you and I are going on a trip too." "Where are we going, Daddy?" she asked excitedly. "To Grandma and Grandpa's farm." She squealed and started dancing. Emma loved visiting my parents and seeing the farm animals. "Can we see the ducks and the little pigs?" she asked. "Sure, honey," I told her. "Let's get started." I grabbed our bags, and we headed to the car. I considered leaving Rachel a note but decided against it. The drive to my parents' farm took a little over an hour. Emma slept most of the way. When we turned onto the gravel road, she woke up and pointed at the horses and cows. When we arrived, Mom and Dad greeted us. Emma rushed into Grandma's arms, eager to see the animals. Mom took her to the barn, giving me a concerned look. I took my bag, Dad took Emma's, and we went inside. Dad offered me a glass of sweet tea in the kitchen, its flavor reminding me of my childhood. "Okay, Jake, what's going on with you and Rachel?" Dad asked bluntly, worry in his eyes. "Let's take a walk, Dad, and I'll tell you everything." I had been waiting for this conversation ever since I called and asked if we could stay for a week. They loved Rachel and considered her the daughter they never had. I knew it would affect them deeply. As we walked along the fence, I told my dad the whole story. He was mostly silent, but I saw the pain in his eyes. He gasped at some parts, and by the end, there were tears in his eyes. "I can't believe Rachel could do this," he said. "She's always been so good to us and such a good mother to Emma. How could she become so callous and selfish?" He looked at me carefully. "Jake, could this be some kind of misunderstanding or a joke?" I understood his denial. I still had trouble believing it myself. I pulled out my phone and showed him the video from the green room. "Watch this, Dad." When he took the phone, I reached over and pressed the arrow to start the video playing. He muttered to himself in a half-whisper, "I can't make out." Oh my God! The footage was unmistakable. I took the phone from him, and he stood there helplessly, his shoulders slumped and his face tense. Then he grabbed me and put me in a tight hug. "Oh, son, I'm so sorry. It hurts me so much to see this. I can't imagine how you felt," he said, his voice heavy with emotion. We stood there for a few more minutes, then walked back to the house in silence. He kept his hand on my shoulder. I turned to him and asked, "Dad, can you tell Mom?" "I don't think I can." He nodded solemnly. "I'll do it," he said quietly. Mom and Emma were in the kitchen having a snack when we returned. Mom looked worried when she saw Dad's face. "Honey," he said to Mom, "why don't you take Emma to the pond to see the ducklings?" Emma jumped up, tugging my arm. "Let's go see the ducks, Daddy," she exclaimed eagerly. I nodded gratefully to Dad and led Emma to the pond. When we got back, Mom had been crying. She hugged me tightly. "I love you, Jake. Dad and I will be here for you no matter what happens," she said, her voice trembling. "Thanks, Mom," I whispered, looking at Dad. "Thank you, Dad. That means a lot." We stood together for a long time, the silence unsettling Emma. I turned to her and said, "Okay, Emma, let's go unpack and get ready for dinner." She took my hand and led me to our room. I told myself I would never lose my daughter, no matter what. The next day, we went to the old Baptist church that Mom and Dad had attended for years. I was glad to hear the familiar words and sing the old hymns. That evening, Brandon called to update me on his weekend's work. I realized how lucky I was to have him as a friend and how much I owed him. When I tried to thank him, he brushed it off. "You would have done it for me," he said dismissively. He understood what I wanted to say. Then his tone changed. "Okay, Jake, are you ready to put our plan into action? There's no turning back once we start," he warned. I paused to consider the risks. Even if we succeeded, things could still end badly. But Rachel had humiliated me and put me in an unbearable position. I had to fight back. "Brandon," I said, "let's do it." Brandon must have sensed my resolve. If anything, Nicole thinks you're doing the right thing, he said, cheering me up. Do you have access to a computer? I laughed. Yes, we're not living in the 1800s. Good. I'll call you tomorrow with more info, he said. Why not just email me the link? I asked, puzzled. No, I want to keep this private. Just wait for my call, he insisted. I checked on Emma, making sure she was asleep in her new bed. Brandon called mid-morning Monday. When you get some privacy, go to YouTube and type KDFW into the search bar, he instructed. Watch it and tell me what you think. Mom and Dad took Emma out for a walk, so the timing was perfect. I went to YouTube and searched. One video titled KDFW co-host Rachel Whitmore shares her personal philosophy on love and marriage caught my eye. The familiar theme music for the 6 o'clock news played, but as the camera zoomed in on Rachel, her voice faded and a voiceover began. Popular news co-host Rachel Whitmore of KDFW was recently interviewed about her views on love and marriage, the voiceover announced. The screen switched to Rachel saying, "Marriage is an institution that has been around as long as human society, but today it is under siege like never before." I recognized those lines from a series KDFW had aired about the rising divorce rate, but instead of continuing, the voiceover returned. What are your views on the sanctity of marriage, Rachel? The scene shifted to our den where Rachel spoke. Wedding vows were written for another time. No one believes that nonsense anymore. The scene froze, and the voiceover continued. What about fidelity to your husband? Rachel replied, if I want to leave and hook up with Derek Callahan, I'll do it. That's what I want. Derek Callahan's image appeared, leaving no doubt about who she meant. The voiceover resumed. What about the public's opinion? Do you think your viewers would agree? Rachel answered, I don't care what my fans think. They're just redneck hicks. In 6 months to a year, I'll leave this town for a real city. What people here think means nothing to me. The unseen voice asked, so you plan to have an affair with Derek Callahan? Rachel's response was clear. I've already told you. I'm going to have my affair with Derek, and there's nothing you can do. The video switched to footage I shot in the green room. The intimate scene was clear. The voiceover concluded, now Dallas viewers are left with one question. Where are Rachel and Derek this week? The KDFW news theme played, showing an empty newsroom before fading out. I leaned back, feeling a mix of triumph and sadness. I called Brandon, who answered immediately. What do you think? My God, Brandon, you're a genius. This will ruin her career, I said, amazed. Not bad, huh? I'm proud of it, he said cheerfully. I felt a twinge of guilt. Were we too rough on her? Did she say all these things to you? Brandon countered. Yes, but... No buts. She turned into a selfish monster. And we need to show that to the world, he said firmly. You're a good guy, Jake. If you don't do this, it won't be you who suffers, but Emma. Do you want Rachel as her role model? You're right, Brandon. There is no choice, I admitted. So what's next? Do we send out mass emails with the video link? No need. This will spread on its own. I'll hint to a few gossipers and it will go viral. Just be patient, he assured me. Okay, Brandon. Keep me informed, I said, feeling a bit more at ease. For the next few days, Emma and I enjoyed our time at the farm. Emma learned about farming and cooking with my mom. It was a wonderful week, exposing her to things she wouldn't see in the city. Meanwhile, Brandon called daily with updates. On Tuesday, he chuckled as he told me Nicole heard about the video from a coworker. By Wednesday, it was discussed at the agency meeting. On Thursday, a media columnist mentioned it in the paper, ending with, and the question on everyone's mind. Where are Rachel and Derek? Brandon couldn't hide his glee when he called me Thursday afternoon. I talked to our media officer who handles KDFW, Brandon said. The whole station is in a panic. They're getting calls from other news outlets trying to interview Rachel and Derek about the video, and the KDFW staff doesn't know what to do. Ryan Foster is also out of town, and no one can reach him. On Friday, Brandon directed me to a media blog article on a Dallas news site. It reported on the uproar caused by the KDFW anchors and linked to the YouTube video, predicting that heads might roll. That morning, I called my attorney to file for divorce and arranged for Rachel to be served on Saturday at the beach house in South Padre Island, where she and Derek were staying. I figured it was worth the cost. I also called Lindsay to let her know and asked if she wanted Derek served at the same time. "No," she replied. "I'll do it myself when he gets home." I wished her luck. Other local TV stations in Dallas, jealous of KDFW's success, smelled blood when they saw the video. Brandon tipped off a producer at the second highest rated channel that I was filing for divorce, which they could report as a real news event. My attorney confirmed the filing and revealed the location where Rachel would be served. The station decided to go full force, sending a video crew and lead reporter to South Padre Island on Saturday. Brandon called me Saturday morning with more news. Ryan Foster has been contacted, cut his vacation short, and is trying to return to Dallas. The KDFW staff is terrified. Brandon advised me to watch the evening news on a competitor station. Saturday, usually a slow news day, saw the Rachel and Derek story as the top headline. The co-host opened with a picture of Rachel and Derek, showing a billboard from my office window. Many Dallas residents have been concerned about the whereabouts of Rachel Whitmore and Derek Callahan of KDFW. We found them in South Padre Island. The footage cut to the reporter, Sandra Martinez, walking down the beach toward Rachel and Derek sunbathing. Neither noticed until Sandra started asking loudly, "Rachel Whitmore? Derek Callahan? What can you tell us about your relationship and the stories going around in Dallas?" Rachel, in a bikini, hastily tried to cover herself, and Derek grabbed a towel. "What do you have to say about the video all over the internet?" Sandra asked. "What video?" Rachel asked, confused. "The one where you told Dallas viewers you came here to have an affair with Derek Callahan," Sandra replied coldly. Rachel sputtered, and Derek tried to intervene, but a man in a suit suddenly appeared. "Are you Rachel Whitmore Morrison?" he asked. Reflexively, Rachel answered, "Yes." "Then, Ms. Whitmore," he said, handing her an envelope, "you have been served. Your husband also instructed me to inform you that the locks on your house have been changed, and you are no longer welcome there." The man walked away, leaving Rachel stunned. Anger flashed in her eyes as she screamed something the cameras didn't catch. Derek, realizing the cameras were still rolling, grabbed her and led her toward the resort. The camera followed, focusing on their hasty retreat. The local announcer reappeared on the screen. Rachel Whitmore and Derek Callahan, missing all week, were sharing a room at a resort in South Padre Island. Rachel's husband has sued her for divorce and kicked her out of the house. We tried to contact him but couldn't get a comment. They couldn't reach me because Emma and I were at my parents' farm. Brandon informed me that Rachel had not believed the bluff about the locks being changed and went to the house with Derek, only to find her key didn't work. A camera crew caught her frustration. When they went to Derek's house, Lindsay served him divorce papers at the door, also caught on camera. They ended up spending the night in a motel. Brandon got more details from our media manager, who heard from a contact at KDFW. Ryan Foster returned to Dallas and tried unsuccessfully to contact Rachel and Derek, who had their phones off. Ryan was furious, especially after seeing the competing network's exclusive report. Derek finally called the office Sunday afternoon, and Ryan ordered them to the studio. They sneaked in through the service elevator to avoid the competing station's van. Ryan berated them for their behavior and then fired them in front of the staff. Rachel screamed, "You can't do that. We have a contract." Ryan replied coldly, "Your contracts have a morals clause requiring you to behave according to societal norms. What we do in private is nobody's business." Rachel snapped back. Ryan, a practicing Catholic, stood up. "The priest spoke about the sanctity of marriage and the sin of infidelity at Mass this morning. He didn't mention you by name, but he referred to public figures setting a bad example." Rachel recoiled, but Derek continued, "Nobody knows or cares about us." Ryan sarcastically replied, "Obviously you didn't see the news last night. Just look out the window." He pulled back the curtain, revealing a vandalized billboard that now had graffiti calling Rachel unflattering names. Ryan continued, "Your behavior has dishonored the station and damaged our ratings and reputation. I have no choice but to take you off the air and terminate your contracts." "Have you ever seen the original Frankenstein?" Confused, they nodded. "Now," Ryan said, "you are the monster, and the people of Dallas are the angry mob. If I were you, I'd leave town as soon as possible." I was very nervous driving back to Dallas on Sunday evening. I left late to avoid any confrontation with Rachel or the media. On the way, I heard the news about Rachel and Derek's dismissal. When I arrived home, the media had already left. The next morning, the Dallas Morning News broke a new scandal involving a city politician accused of embezzlement, pushing Rachel and Derek's story to the back pages. No one cared about my reaction anymore. I took Emma to Mrs. Henderson's house. She welcomed Emma warmly, and Emma ran off to play. Mrs. Henderson gave me a sympathetic look. "I was so sad to hear about everything, Jake. I hope you and Emma are doing well." I thanked her but didn't know how things would turn out. It was telling she didn't mention Rachel. At the office, everyone was friendly but seemed to avoid me, except for Brandon. He hugged me tightly. "You're a genius," I told him. "You're a master of the viral campaign." "It worked out better than we hoped," he said. "The only downside is we'll never be able to tell anyone what we did." "That's good," I replied. "Rachel will figure out I was behind it and come after me. I don't want you caught in the crossfire." To my surprise, my lawyer called at the end of the week with news that Rachel had decided not to contest the divorce. "But why?" I asked. "She said she'd fight me. Her attorney talked her out of it," he said. "She wanted to countersue for invasion of privacy, but the legal questions were too complicated, and she's not popular now. No sympathetic jurors." "What about Emma?" I asked. "Rachel swore she'd try to take her." "Rachel is unemployed with no prospects. No judge would give her custody. She's leaving town and giving up custody in your favor. She only wants to get her belongings before she leaves and to talk to you if she signs the papers." "I can talk to her before she leaves," I agreed. We arranged it for the end of the week. I got almost everything I wanted. No, that's not true. What I really wanted was my old life back. But that was impossible. At least I had my daughter, and that was what mattered most. The next night, Brandon, Nicole, and I celebrated over dinner. Emma came too and slept in one of their beds while we talked. I brought champagne to toast my friends. Nicole raised her glass. "To you guys," she said. "I thought your scheme was crazy and would blow up in your faces. But you," she saluted me, "were fighting for your little girl. And you," she looked at Brandon, "my loving husband, were confident you could handle it. Thank you both for fighting and winning despite the odds. Cheers." Brandon and I agreed in unison. Before wrapping up everything, I felt the need to check on Lindsay Pierce. She was an innocent bystander caught in the mess, suffering perhaps more than anyone else. I felt guilty for involving her, even though it was necessary and Derek was the real culprit. Unlike me, Lindsay hadn't seen this coming. I called her, and she invited me to lunch, indicating she didn't hold a grudge. We met at a quiet restaurant. After we ordered, I asked, "How are you doing?" "Not well, Jake," she said. "One day I'm happily married to a TV host. The next, I'm divorcing a liar who humiliated me." "I know, Lindsay. This feels like a bad soap opera." I sympathized. She asked about my situation with Rachel, and I shared the divorce results. "Good," she said vindicatively. "She got what she deserved." "What about Derek?" "That coward left town without facing me. He told his lawyer to give me whatever I wanted. I don't know where he is, and I don't care. Except I keep waking up reaching for him," she said, tearing up. "Are you okay financially?" I asked. "Yes and no. He left me a house, but it's too big with a big mortgage. Derek has to pay alimony, but I don't count on it. Finding a new job for him won't be easy. I think I'll move in with my parents, find a job, and rebuild my life. This isn't how I imagined things," she said sadly. I felt terrible for her. She was a sweet person who didn't deserve this. I asked her to stay in touch and let me know where she was. I really liked Lindsay and hoped she could pull through. The last thing left was Rachel's visit, which I wasn't looking forward to. My earlier anger had subsided with the success of our viral video. I felt I had regained some dignity and no longer wanted to fight with Rachel or gloat. I decided to do something nice for her by having Emma there when she arrived. When Rachel got out of the SUV she rented to move her belongings, she frowned. But when I let Emma run to her, the frown disappeared, replaced by a smile and happy tears as Emma hugged her. Rachel looked up and whispered, "Thank you." They played together for a long time. The visit was supposed to last an hour, but I disregarded that once I decided to have Emma there. After Emma showed and told her mother everything, Rachel suggested she go to her room to play. "I'll be up soon, baby. Daddy and I need to talk first." Once Emma left, Rachel turned to me, annoyed. "Thank you for that. I didn't expect you to let me see her." I just nodded. Rachel's mood shifted. "You used a private conversation to destroy me and make me a laughingstock. How could you do that?" I sighed. "Rachel, I don't want to fight anymore. Neither of us will win." "Easy for you to say," she snapped. "You cost me my job, my family, my future to protect your ego." "Rachel," I said, "I wasn't going to fight, but think about it. None of this would have happened if you hadn't acted on your desires without regard for anyone else. You brought this on yourself." Rachel started to reply, but Emma called out, asking when she'd come upstairs. Rachel looked at me, then went upstairs to Emma. After playing in Emma's room, Rachel packed her things while talking to her. I heard their happy chatter from downstairs. Finally, Rachel came back down with her suitcases, Emma following. Rachel knelt in front of Emma and said, "Mom has to leave. I'll be living in another state and won't see you every day, but I'll visit whenever I can, and we can talk on the phone and video call as much as you want." Emma immediately cried out, "No, Mommy, I don't want you to go." She clung to her mother as if she were the only life raft in the ocean. Rachel lifted her, hugging tightly and trying to reassure her. "It's okay, doll. I'll see you soon, and we'll have a great time." She walked over to me, holding Emma. "Now be a good girl for Daddy. I love you, Emma. Don't forget that." Rachel picked up her suitcases and walked briskly to the door, tears streaming down her face, but she didn't look back. She loaded her suitcases into the car, waved quickly, and drove away. I hugged my sobbing daughter, tears running down my cheeks too. I was losing my wife and Emma was losing her mother. Finally, I put Emma down. "Listen," I said, "I have an idea." "What, Daddy?" she asked, tears in her eyes. "Why don't we go to the park and see the ducks and maybe get some ice cream? Would you like that?" "Oh yes," she answered. "And we can feed the cones to the ducks. Can't we, Daddy?" "Of course we can," I replied, relieved to distract her. I knew she'd miss her mom, but I hoped young children were more resilient. I hoped I could adapt too. The next week, I had to adapt even more. Late one night, my boss called me into his office. "Jake, you've done a great job, and we appreciate your contribution to the agency," he began. I was waiting for the "but" I knew was coming. "But this situation with your wife is affecting our clients. They ask if you're Rachel's husband, and it impacts them. Our relationship with KDFW is also strained, and they're a key media outlet for us." "Are you firing me?" I asked bluntly. "Absolutely not," he said. "But we think it's best if you seek employment elsewhere." "How much time do I have?" I snapped. "Take as much as you need. I'll give you a glowing letter of recommendation." It wasn't fair, but there was no point in burning bridges. I shook his hand, assured him I understood, and thanked him for the recommendation. Then I went to Brandon's office. "What's up, buddy?" he asked. "I just got fired," I told him. "The supervisors think it's best for me to leave." "This is nonsense," he bellowed. "I'm going to tell them what I think." I guided him back to his chair. "You're not doing anything. I knew it was risky when I started. You've done too much for me already." He wasn't happy but calmed down. We ended the conversation with me promising to come over for dinner on Saturday, bringing my 4-year-old friend. Then I went back to my office and updated my resume. I realized that Rachel and Derek's affair had made me damaged goods in the area. Everyone liked me, but no one wanted to hire me. It was time to widen my search. Eventually, I returned to my old agency in Houston, where the scandal hadn't followed me, and they welcomed my big city experience. I had to sell my house in Dallas, and although the market was decent, I got little from the sale, which had to be shared with Rachel. Rachel didn't disappear from our lives. She started calling Emma weekly and quickly moved to Skype so they could see each other. Face-to-face meetings were out of the question since Rachel now lived in Phoenix, Arizona. Our video attack on Rachel had a broader impact than expected, making her job search even outside Texas difficult. Eventually, she got a job teaching journalism at Phoenix College. When I reconnected with my old agency, I needed to find a place to live. The agency connected me with a real estate agent. When she arrived for our first meeting, I was shocked to discover it was Lindsay Pierce. She showed me several properties, and we caught up on everything that had happened. Lindsay had moved to Houston shortly after Derek left and started a career in residential real estate. I mentioned needing a preschool for Emma, and Lindsay got excited, offering to help with that and other children's activities. I enjoyed our conversation and invited her to dinner to discuss the houses. She was always pretty, like the girl next door, and I found her natural and easy to talk to, unlike the TV personalities I was used to. She recommended a modestly priced house, which surprised me. When I asked why, she said, "It's where I would like to live." This honesty endeared her to me. Lindsay and I got married and moved into the house she liked. I was worried about how Emma and Lindsay would get along, but my fears were unfounded. Lindsay had wanted a family ever since marrying Derek, but he refused, believing a child would hinder his career. She and Emma bonded instantly. Emma even started calling her Lindsay Mom, which soon became just Mom. That summer, we flew to Phoenix so Emma could visit Rachel. Lindsay and I planned to explore Arizona while Emma stayed with her mom for a week. I was hesitant to bring this up with Lindsay, considering her reasons to dislike Rachel, but she thought it was a great idea. She seemed more confident in our marriage and mature about the situation than I had anticipated. We arrived at Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport, where Rachel was waiting for us. Despite seeing her often on Skype, I almost didn't recognize her in person with her short haircut and business casual attire. Emma suddenly became shy, clinging to Lindsay's waist and hiding her face. Lindsay gently nudged her toward Rachel, whispering encouragement. Eventually, Emma walked hesitantly to Rachel, then ran and hugged her. Rachel cried with happiness, which initially confused and worried Emma. "I'm just so happy to see you," Rachel reassured her, and they hugged tightly. Rachel looked at Lindsay and me and whispered, "Thank you." The four of us went to the baggage claim area. When Emma paused to admire items in a store window, Rachel turned to us. "I know we don't have much time, but I want to apologize. I've done a lot of thinking and therapy over the past couple of years. I realized what I had become in my pursuit of stardom and how much I hurt those around me, especially you two. You probably can't forgive me, but I hope you won't hate me." Lindsay and I looked at each other, then hugged Rachel together, letting go of a lot of past hurt. After our vacation, I called Dallas one evening. Nicole answered, and we chatted before I asked to speak to Brandon. When he got on the line, I made my pitch. "You took a chance on me once. Will you do it again?" "What are you talking about, Jake?" he replied, sounding puzzled. "Quit your job, move here, and start an advertising agency called Morrison & Walsh. What do you say?" I held my breath. Brandon replied, "Only if we call it Walsh and Morrison." We laughed and started planning. Brandon wasn't happy at his old job and was eager for something new, so my call came at the perfect time. We moved Brandon and Nicole to Houston, with Lindsay helping them find a beautiful home nearby, even refusing a commission to make it easier for them. Shortly after opening our agency, we pitched to a potential client who loved our approach. "I want to stand out," he said, looking intrigued. "Can you guys do something like a viral campaign?" Brandon and I smiled at each other. "Yeah," I said, confidence growing. "We can handle it." Thank you for your viewing. See you next time. If you enjoyed this, subscribe to JK Tells a Story for more tales.